All right. Well, welcome everybody to another episode of our Unpredictable Pipeline video interview series. We are talking to marketing leaders in B2B companies that are focused on trying to drive predictable pipeline, but especially so far here in 2020, we've been facing some fairly unpredictable conditions. Many of our interviews have been with chief marketing officers. Today, we have a chief revenue officer who owns both marketing and sales, Scott Horn from PrismHR. Thank you, Scott, for agreeing to do this.
Thanks, Matt. Happy to be here.
So can you maybe just start by founding us just quickly describe what does PrismHR do, and then sort of talk about your role, especially as it relates to managing both the sales and the marketing functions.
Great. So what PrismHR does is we are a SaaS HR platform provider. And our platform, we offer that through a great network of close to 300 partners who are called professional employer organizations. And they use that platform to provide all kinds of services for small and medium businesses across the US. So we have, depending on what month it is in COVID, between 1.5, 2 million employees on the platform. We serve about 90,000 small businesses through that partner network. So we're the technology, they enhance that with services and other things. So US-centric business, we've grown 10x in revenues since our current CEO took the reins in, I want to say, early 2013. So really exciting business. And frankly, our mission is to help small businesses grow. That's really what we get focused on with our partners.
So can you describe the difference between sort of January, February of this year from a plan and a momentum standpoint, and then sort of what the last couple of months have looked like? What were some of the early signs, especially, not just as on the marketing side, but on the sales side? What are some of the early things you saw, and what were some of the early adjustments that you made along the way?
Yeah, you bet. So we actually have kind of two, I'll call it sales and marketing efforts that are worth talking about. One is we obviously try to go out and get new partners, but we also have a whole effort involving SDRs, sales development reps, where we go after small businesses and bring them to our partners. So we were seeing both. So, January, we were like everybody else, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, excited. In fact, our Q1, we're on a calendar year, fiscal year, our Q1 was the best ever quarter we had. From a revenue standpoint, we were seeing things go really well. And, January, February looked really good. We came into a lot of excitement, did our sales kickoff. And then starting, I'd say probably, and we left the office, I want to say March 13th, we made an early decision. We're in Massachusetts to go out of the office and work from home. And really within the next 10 days after that, we started seeing, wow, suddenly our SDRs are having trouble getting people on the phone. We're getting calls from clients. In fact, one of the things that's interesting about us is we do payroll software. So all the tax legislation, the payroll protection program, the Family First Act, CARES Act, all affected us. We had to do software updates. So, and I have responsibility for marketing, sales, and customer success, so the existing client base. So suddenly, January, February, things are going along, clients are growing, our partners are growing, we're seeing a lot of activity, things are great quarter. You come crashing into April, and April, wow, tough month. We saw employee counts on the platform, because it's a cloud platform, drop. We had existing partners call us up and say, how can you help? What can we do? We saw that small business prospects were tougher to get on the phone. People were saying, no, I can't talk to you now. Let me talk to you in June or July. Now, the one good piece of news is when we got people on the phone, they were pretty serious, because if you were going to take the time to get on the phone with us, you weren't kicking the tires. So a lot of that time was, and our CEO and the leadership team, I think, did a really great job on this, which is, hey, we got to communicate to people. So we started doing, for example, we have originally it was 5 days a week, a leadership stand-up. I'm doing team stand-ups virtually. I was doing those 5 nights a week. We kind of cut it back to a couple, but we've also gone to a more frequent team cadence and meeting, because, your SDRs are out there and they're working their hearts out. I mean, the SDRs, we didn't change the metrics, and they were working hard, and you could see it, but it's tougher. Some days they felt like you have to make it really clear to them, hey, you guys are doing a great job. You're not doing what we need you to do. You're doing what we need you to. And hey, it's not your fault. That's just not coming together. So sorry, longish answer, but night and day.
No,
night and
that's
day.
helpful. I mean, you covered a lot of ground there, and I think there's a few things I'd love to dig in on a
Sure.
little bit. One is just sort of just managing the team, right? I mean, making the transition from working closer environment where you're seeing people more often to a remote
Yep.
environment where people aren't seeing their colleagues. They're not feeling like they're part of the community as naturally. They're seeing all the chaos around them. What are some things you are doing, and what are some initiatives you put in place to just keep the team sort of pumped up and motivated?
Yeah, so we do a few things, and some of it came from the team. It wasn't just me, because I mean, it would be a shame if it all came from me. Um, so number one, we're fairly distributed to start with. So Hopkinton, Massachusetts is the headquarters, but we also have a small office in Sarasota and Florida, and probably 1/3 of the employee base is, not just sales, but customer support, development, professional services spread across the country. So we had a fairly, distributed footprint. But our HR and culture team, and my internal comms sits with me, and they work very, very closely. And the dotted line to HR, the internal comms leader and the HR team did a fantastic job of just keeping the company engaged. So they've done like virtual gaming nights, like virtual bingo nights. We did stand-ups. We started doing more frequent all hands where you know, various leaders like our CFO will stand up and say, here's the revenue picture. And we're trying to be pretty transparent. Now, early on, we did do some things. We did actually take a temporary salary, cut,
Mhm.
including, more at the leadership level. So CEO, founders, senior leadership team, much higher than the individual level. And good news is we've started to restore that because we're seeing business come back.
Mhm.
But a lot of it was, make sure you're touching everybody at least a couple of times a week.
Mhm.
And we have a pretty good cadence. I mean, I'm a big believer in cadence. So we do all our pipeline calls on Mondays, and even where a marketing person would normally be in a sales, we try to have some of them sit in the sales calls so they can
Mhm.
at least be connected. We do kind of a team ops review. The marketing team does also on Monday stand-up meeting. So a lot of it's just providing the opportunities for people to connect so they're not isolated. I occasionally will reach out and ping somebody over Slack or just get on the phone with somebody or video call and say, how's it going? How can I help? What do you need? How are you doing? And then, like I said, the senior leadership team did a really good job, our CEO in particular, communicating. One of the things that I think probably our internal comms HR people came up with was 5 minutes with Gary, who's our CEO, on as a Slack channel,
Yeah.
which actually gets a lot of traffic. A lot of people, like will just throw questions on there, and he's really good about it. So that's a lot of it. A lot of it's, and you got to be honest with people. I mean, the revenue plan kind of went out the window.
Mhm.
The good news is we're on the revised plan. We're progressing really well on that. We didn't throw the bookings plan out, so that we kept the bookings plan. It's challenging, but you got to try for something. And I think the key has been communicating to people. I think even on the salary changes, we laid it out and said, hey, the senior leadership's taken a much bigger cut, which frankly was the right thing to do.
Mhm.
So people didn't feel like, oh, it's me taking it. And we've also committed publicly that we'll restore salaries basically bottoms up, not tops down.
Mhm.
So all the salaries will be restored for individual contributors before senior leadership, CEO, founders get it. So
That's good. I know, you sitting across sales and marketing, you guys had a pretty robust field marketing and event schedule at the beginning of the year.
yeah.
A lot of that has gone away. You've been doing some more interesting things around virtual exhibit halls and sort of changing the way sort of event sponsorships work so you can get some good ROI out of that. What have been some of the lessons you've learned,
Yeah.
the implications that you might recommend other people check out as well to try to leverage more of these virtual events that are becoming more mainstay now?
Yeah, yeah. It's actually interesting. So we were originally going to have our physical event. We do it every year in the spring in San Diego, and like everybody else in the world, we were hoping. Then we said, nope, we're not going to do it, and we scrambled and said, let's do a virtual. We just finished that 2 weeks ago, and it was actually really successful. So last year and I'll talk about the pros and cons of both. Last year at the physical event, which was in Boston last year, we had approximately 450 attendees. This year at the virtual event, we had almost 1,300 registered, and I think close to 80% attended sessions, which is
Wow.
phenomenal. So a few things, on the good side, we had a lot broader participation across our community. So for example, company X, they may have said, we're only going to send 1 or 2 people because, hey, travel costs, got to be out of the office, etc. Now we had, because it was virtual and we made it free, we had everybody, a lot more people come. That was good. And I'll talk about a little bit and how it grew. The other thing we decided to do, and you kind of alluded to it, Matt, is one of the best things at the physical event is we have a big exhibit hall because we have this very large marketplace of, insurance partners, additional time and labor partners, financial advice partners, all kinds of things that are offered through the platform. And the community actually loves it. So we came up with the idea and said, look, let's create a virtual exhibit hall. We had acquired a new event technology platform that we were very excited about, which did work very well. We kind of scuttled our old one, and we offered, very low cost, really to defray the cost, sponsorships where we said, look, you can be a marketplace, virtual marketplace exhibit hall sponsor. We'll give you a private room. You can have up to 40 people. You can do the presentation you want. We'll promote it to the base. You'll see everybody who's there, and you can actually have a dialogue just like sitting in a conference room. We sold out all the sponsorships for that. They were gone weeks before. The feedback from partners, marketplace partners has been phenomenal. And the good news is we got a lot of interest. So that was all the good side. Now, that said, there are things you miss that you can't replicate from a physical event. I mean, one of the nice things there is we usually have the exhibit hall at the physical event outside all the, the conference rooms. So you'll just run into people. Oh, Matt, hey, I didn't know you were here. Great. Hey, let's go let's go have a beer in the bar or coffee. And you don't really get as much of that. So I think where we landed is we'd love to do our physical event next year and also keep doing virtual events. So for example, one of the things we're thinking about is a virtual event at a regional level may make a ton of sense. Or maybe one of the ideas somebody suggested the other day, which I thought was amazing, really good idea. I think it came from one of our product management people, the product management leader, which is a great idea. He said, hey, what if we gave people for each, physical ticket you buy, we'll give you 3 virtual tickets. And I thought that was an interesting idea. I was like, that's a really cool idea, because you ideally want something where you get as many people participating as you can. Because the reality is every company, including us, we do this because it helps the community use the product better, get better at it. So there's a shared benefit. So you want to get as many people as you can.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you'd like that, just kind of running into each other at the hall. So I'm glad we did it. I'd say our team, it was marketing, our product. In fact, pretty much it took an entire company effort. We had even our IT team on standby the whole time, like bandwidth checking everything. True company effort, and we really scrambled and put it on. It was actually really well done. Very proud of it. And the attendee feedback's been extremely positive.
That's awesome. Well, I think some lessons I take out of that, one is just and you're not the first person I've heard talk about the value of sort of the private rooms, right? The breakout sessions that give, either you as a marketer or give your sponsors sort of a captive audience that has self-selected in many cases to that topic. And also, you're speaking to the fact that I think in the past we've thought of, do we do this event live or do we do it virtual? It is no longer an either or. I think it's going to be an and for many companies moving forward. Which is going to help them sort of reach more people with the same type of content and provide a lot more value. The last thing I wanted to cover, Scott, that we talked about before is, and last week on our CMO Coffee Talk session, we featured pricing and packaging as a topic, and it was a very robust, well-attended conversation, as you would imagine. And I think, and it's important, especially right now, because I think there's a difference between pricing and packaging. There's a difference between what the price is and how you help people pay for it. And especially when, budgets are still tight, people are still being very conservative about their cash. Instead of discounting, in many cases, you can provide more flexibility and creativity around payments. What have you done? What have you seen work so far for your small business market in that realm?
So we had this both on, I'll say, the sales side with new logos. We also had this very much, as I mentioned earlier, with our existing customer base, where, we have every vertical in the country represented in our customer base. So, we have partners specialize in hospitality and travel. And, we have one large partner that does substitute teachers. So they were calling us up going, wow, April, May, hey, help. So first thing is we're taking, I'll say overall, a broader look at a pricing packaging across the entire platform, because over the years we've added new features and capabilities. We've acquired tuck-in acquisitions. So my product marketing leader, who's really strong, nobody on this broadcast recruit him. He is looking at that, and we're going to take a broad look at that because we think there's some interesting things, some interesting pricing lessons out there from other industries we can apply. But then what we did is we looked at a bunch of things. So for example, on the implementation side, because implementation costs, you look at various kinds of things like, okay, can we spread your implementation cost payments out over a period of time? Or can we potentially, give you something that will give you a credit later on as you pay us service fees, as you bring people onto the platform and you get past a certain threshold, we'll give you perhaps some kind of credit against those implementation fees. We've looked at that. We've looked, in the cases, and I think, a lot of companies have had this, in the cases where we've had existing partners call up and say, help, we've had a good dialogue. We've said, look, we want to help because you're a partner. I mean, particularly if they're what I'd characterize as a long-term good partner, somebody who, they've been with you for a while, good partner, stay in touch. There's things you can do. So for example, in some cases we've said, okay, what if, we can work with you on your service pricing if you're willing to take some marketplace partner add-ins, because there's revenue share from the marketplace partner for both of us. So it's a win. We've done some of that, and that's been pretty successful. We've also said to people, look, you're hurting now. Okay, well, let's work with you now, and then we'll look to kind of make it back up together as the economy. So, there's various things you can do in contracts where you can kind of restructure base minimums, et cetera. We didn't really do price discounts. I don't think about that way. We tried to look at partners and say, you had X employees on your platform, because that's really the payment mechanism, price per employee. You had so many in, say, January, here's where you are now. Okay, let's factor that. And, I will say you do get this, and every CMO sales leader gets this. You do get partners who just call up even though they've lost nobody because, hey, it seems like the prudent thing to do. And in those cases, you got to have a dialogue and say, hey, look, I hear you, but we're still providing the same level of service we were in January. Your business conditions haven't changed. So sorry, we still think we're providing a fair service, so we're not going to do that.
Well, I mean, as a buyer, you don't get a discount or a deferral unless you ask for it. But as a seller, I think, we've seen quite a few instances the last few months of people just standing up for the value they provide.
Yeah.
Payment terms is a different thing than how you price things. And I think that if you
right.
change how you're pricing it now to get a deal, to get deal movement, like that's a slippery slope that will have echoes well after sort of the pandemic economic impact sort of passes along.
Well, I agree with that. I mean, in fact, we never thought of it as pricing, because it really wasn't adjusting pricing. What we said to people is, look, let's, because essentially what they pay us is a function of pricing and, what kind of scale they have on the platform, as well as what, out of the whole portfolio of technology, how much they're consuming. So, and we work with people on those bases. I agree with you, Matt. If you find yourself solely in a pricing conversation, it's a tough one, because it's really hard to unwind that later on. And some of it, honestly, is you just got to sit down and have a good economic business conversation with the partner, respectfully, candidly, and say, hey, we're providing you this service. The costs for that really haven't gone down either. And, part of it also was, one of the nice things about the virtual event is, when we show people the future roadmap and what we're actually delivering, because we do quarterly releases, people were pretty pumped. So it's not like we're not in maintain mode. Our product delivery, our product management team, every quarter, they're putting out new capabilities and making the platform better.
Right. Well, I know we could keep going for a while, but you got to get back to closing some deals. So
I know.
Scott Horn, Chief Revenue Officer, PrismHR, thank you so much for joining the Unpredictable Pipeline video series, and we'll see y'all next time.
Thanks, Matt.